Volkmar needs to be nerfed. There, I said it, and I've actually said it before. I don't use Volkmar too frequently in my Empire battles, just because he is so ridiculously strong, but given that this battle took place on Anticity's Ladder, and it's a bit of a competitive environment, I'm also against Greenskins, who are a very strong faction. It does call for Volkmar, and in fact, most of the Unbreakable army here, I've got Volkmar and the Steam Tank, all unbreakable, obviously. 5 Flagellants, including the Tattersouls and Sigmar Sons to max unbreakable infantry. 1 Empire Knight, Bright Wizard, and the Pistoliers, of course. 4 of them to round out my non-unbreakable troops up against a massive greenskin horde here. Gobos, Wolf Rider, Spider Rider, Archers, Boar Biggins on this side, and some melee Spider Riders. Sort of a mirror out on this flank, with the Mangy Marauders mixed in there. I've got Savage Orc Biggins also on the flanks, Goblins to the center, Night Goblins, some regular Orc Boys, and some more Fanatics, as we'll see shortly. Black Orcs being very conservative in the back there, has a bit of an ace in the hole. Going to be doing some skirmishing with Pistoliers, of course. Firing in with that nice volume of fire, trying to get a little bit of a concave here, but the poison damage and the trees will slow down this unit of Pistoliers enough that it can get caught, especially given that Spider Riders have Strider. They can go at full speed through the woods. That combined with the poison means they'll easily catch those Pistoliers, start to wrap them up, but the big old frontline charge for once is actually going to go decisively in Empire's favor. Actually get what might seem to be a terrible charge here on paper, but then you actually realize, like, this is a really cost-effective engagement for these Flagellants. They're actually trading evenly with those Savage Orc Biggins, which is certainly something. Warzag going to be unleashing a little bit of magic here. And yeah, meanwhile, over on this flank, the terror of Volkmar kicks in. We're going to start to see some breaks. Really nice Fanatics cast coming through, doing a lot of damage to my one Spearman. I guess also unbreakable. Not unbreakable, I should say. Burning Head to kind of respond there. So both of us just nuking each other's front lines. And because of the leadership situation, I have just all unbreakable troops. That means I'm going to win on leadership. Obviously, Volkmar providing some terror here as well. In the back line, the cavalry situation is getting a little bit out of hand. I'm having to make a stand a little bit here with the Pistoliers. Fight with some of the Greenskins light cavalry. Steam Tank providing some terror, and the Bright Wizard's also here. I've made the mistake of taking him on foot, which is going to be very risky. I'm not sure if this was a misclick. I think he was trying to go after the Steam Tank with that effigy to get there, but it is instead going to hit those Empire Knights and just completely nuke them. And they were already taking significant damage from those Savage Orc Biggins, but now they're just going to get absolutely plowed. And Warzag, especially with WA active, up to 75 attack, 459 weapon strength. The Steam Tank, even with Cascading Fire Cloak, only 34 melee defense. So that's not going to be great, but Volkmar showing off his power here, unleashing a devastating banishment on this cavalry fight. Empire Knights are pretty much a lost cause, so no harm in just nuking these Savage Orc Biggins and, you know, Spider Riders, forcing them away. Meanwhile, Volkmar trying to, again, make a stand with the Pistoliers here, take advantage of his terror, get rid of some of these Spider Riders and Wolf Riders, but the Pistoliers mostly rout, so not great. Meanwhile, the remnants of the front line are just charging through, following up, trying to tie down as many of the Greenskins forces as possible. One relatively healthy unit of Flagellants gets caught out by the Black Orcs and the regrouped Biggins there. That's not going to be good at all for them. But yeah, nice Burning Head helps proc more of a terror route. Boar Biggins had Eerie Go and did a ton of damage to the Steam Tank while that was active, but now Volkmar comes through. Volkmar magic damage, flaming damage, 50 charge bonus is going to get, and I'll keep the health bars up so you can just appreciate how much damage Warzag is actually taking here. Obviously not immune to psychology, going to get terror routed, given that he's taken so much shock damage. And as we kind of get close in, realize that, yeah, Volkmar obviously has some broken chariot mechanics in that he can kind of push things around. The attack animations as well for Volkmar's chariot, I believe, are just the horses literally like biting. We kind of look here. Volkmar is going to call down another Soulfire, but yeah, the animations have a really low interval time, right? Like, they're very fast attacking animations, which you might not necessarily expect looking at the unit model, but in fact, those horses do nibble quite frequently, and as a result, sometimes the damage output of Volkmar is very surprising. Granted, excuse me, Warzag does have pretty low melee defense, as does the Steam Tank here, and as a result, they'll both take quite a bit of chip damage. And Volkmar, though, only 30 melee attack. I mean, what is it, 25 base melee defense for Warzag, so not the best hit chance in the world, but certainly above base hit chance. was that? A 40% hit chance, something like that. Anyway, remaining troops, not much. I've got the Sigmar Sons way over chasing out there, a handful of flagellants left scattered around, but mostly everything centered here on these unbreakable chariots. So we're going to keep things nice and close as Volkmar and the steam tank kind of go back to back here. That caster is also just getting absolutely bullied by Wurzag at this point, who took a ton of damage, like I said, and is definitely on his last legs, so got to be careful with him. But one more banishment gets unleashed, and bringing it back to Volkmar. In terms of nerfs, I hesitate to call for too many nerfs for Volkmar, just because in competitive play, he carries Empire pretty heavily in quite a few matchups. I hesitate to call for too many other buffs to Empire units also, because generally I think they're in a really good spot, like Reichsguard, a handful of others. Fixing cavalry certainly, and as I'm recording this, Creative Assembly has fixed the cavalry beta, so I would definitely recommend you all go check that out. Anyway, with the cavalry fix, Empire definitely, gets better in that regard. Their cavalry tools certainly get better. It's still not great, but it does seem like it's going to be better in practice. So maybe it's time to nerf Volkmar a little bit, but in general, I would say for not only Volkmar, but for the Warrior Priest as well, for a long time, I've thought that Soulfire and Grand Soulfire should have a max number of uses, and I'm kind of surprised they've gone this long without getting a max number of uses. Like, I think max 3, given that it has such a long cooldown time, you're rarely going to get 3 in a big battle anyway. Like, I think this might be the 3rd or 4th I've gotten with Volkmar, so it's not like it would have changed really the outcome of this battle all that much. But certainly, I mean, in campaign, you can do some really ridiculous things with like a full stack of Warrior Priests. And, I mean, Warrior Priests and Volkmar in general, I would say, can tend to overperform if you get long battles where they get a lot of casts of Soulfire. Warrior Priests in particular, because they're relatively cheap. But I think it's a small way that they could nerf not only Volkmar, obviously, but all the other kind of Sigmarite priest characters in a way that would be not overly impactful, but a good step. And then I'm not really sure. I need to think about what else to do with Volkmar in terms of potential other nerfs. But I mean, at this point, he is literally just about the only thing I have left. The Sigmar Sons were trying to get back over here, were rudely interrupted by some Night Goblins. And I was wondering, if you watch the live replay, I'm like, why did they drop their attack order? Obviously, these goblins are stalked, and I can't see them, and so I'm like, what are they? I swear I ordered them to get back over here. And shortly they will resume that march, but yeah, Volkmar just lording over the battlefield at this point. Try not to take too much damage from these Mangy Marauders. That is kind of the main thing at this point, is the Mangy Marauders, a little bit of AP ammunition here. If I sit on top of the Black Orcs too long with that AP ammunition, I might lose Volkmar. It's pretty unlikely, given that the rest of these units are going to probably tear out as soon as they get close, and that will affect the leadership of these Black Orcs. They get into combat here as well. But, yeah, I think there was... Yeah, here it is. Almost missed it. One really nice Fanatics cast. Last gasp of these Gobos. Does a ton of damage to the Sigmar Sons, but actually leads to the Gobos themselves routing. So, totally worth it. I mean, these Gobos, 131 kills. Unsung heroes of the battle. 1,000 damage value on a couple really brutal Fanatics casts, at least 2 that I caught there. So, credit to my opponent for that. I would say, broadly, that my opponent probably deserved to win this battle. I do feel like he outplayed me here. But I kind of just won on build, mostly because Volkmar is so ridiculous. And, I mean, obviously, now here's where it gets too much, right? This 4th Soulfire, I do think, is arguably too much. 4th, maybe 5th, I don't know. I haven't been keeping track well enough, but... Anyway, you get the picture. Volkmar, I mean, 205 kills, almost 4,000 damage value. This is not super uncommon for him. I mean, granted, the rest of the build, nothing else really pays for itself, like one Flagellant does. Bright Wizard, given that he's very cheap, probably does as well. Pistoliers get pretty close. Decent amount of value on the Steam Tank. Definitely not as much as you would want, not as much as you're paying for it. But, yeah, I mean, also, credit to Sonoth here. Very good game. Like I said, you probably deserve to win. I do feel like you outplayed me. But looking at the damage values here, you are going to see a little bit of inflation on a few because of the regeneration of Volkmar. And in fact, he's so expensive, there's probably slightly more army damage value here than what I actually had, given that you have to wipe out all the unbreakable troops, just about wipe out all the Pistoliers and Empire Knights as well. So it's not like a whole lot of HP actually fled the battlefield. As a result, almost everything here on the Greenskins army actually pays for itself, which is why I say I probably deserve to lose this. I mean, the Spider Riders were really excellent. Black Orcs, not quite there, but close enough. Both of the Biggins, despite losing I guess only the one lost, really, in that frontline engagement initially. The other one was able to get in on a cavalry engagement with the steam tank, where they were definitely paying for themselves. But both actually ended up paying for themselves, which is quite impressive. But, yeah, it's time to nerf Volkmar. Maybe a slight overall HP nerf as well. I hesitate, again, to call for too much, because I don't want Volkmar to be useless. I mean, if he is useless, then Empire's going to have problems in certain matchups, like big time. Still think he should be a very powerful lord. Don't get me wrong, especially with, you know, Game 3 power creep potentially incoming. But it's about time we had some max uses on Soulfire and Grand Soulfire. I think that is a pretty sensible change to make. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. See you next time.